Well, this particular delivery of mine, which was really the highlight of my life, I'll never forget it. To me, it was wonderful. She sent me out one day and said, "No, I'm not going to give you any work to do this morning. I'm going to do the work, but you've got to go around to 3 mothers that might deliver. And you've got to get very familiar with how you find the roads in the night, because as you know, it could be pitch black.
Yeah.
Really get familiar with it. Find the house, knock on the door, see the mum and tell her that you'll be coming in the night should she want you. And they got to phone me and dad and what they had to do. That took me a morning to do those 3, because I had to find them and get really familiar with the roads and thinking, what will my, if it's lightish, what will my landmarks be? If it's not light, how will I find it? You know, I had little tiny bits of paper with a little torch and I could just sort of see, write myself little notes. You see, no one else to ask. There wasn't a soul about. It was just dead in the night.
Terrifying.
Well, so that particular night I went to bed all apprehensive. No, bed, what was bed? Bed was underneath a Morrison shelter. Do you know table shelters? They were sort of iron. And they were in a room, you see, and they're about this height, tall, and they were dark, very dark green, and they're very, very strong, you see, like metal. And then down the side there was more metal, and then there was a bit of strong mesh for air, as it were. And then there was the hole where you got underneath, and the back was all filled in, and there was mesh at the other end, where you were supposed to lay 2 lengthways on those. But of course, where I was billeted outside, there was Mum and Pam, lovely girl. They were doing an important job. They didn't have to go to war, but her brother and her sister had gone out and they were fighting. So there was Mum, Dad, Pam and me. Well, there was 4 of us, you see, so what could we do? Well, we decided that we had a great big, huge table in that room as well. So Dad got under the table every night. What protection would be, I don't know. And Mum, Pam and I got underneath, but we couldn't lay lengthways because it wasn't enough, so we had to lay widthways, and that meant to say our feet were out. So we took a 2-hour stunt, 2 hours apiece of being awake to call the other one in when the rains came on, and you had to lift your legs in, because they said it would be no good when your legs dropped off, because you couldn't, so you were from there on you had your legs out, see, and then and you had to sit up to keep awake. Say it would be my stunt was say from 12 to whatever the time was, and then the next one took over. You'd wake up and say, "Come on, thoroughly wake up and get awake now, Paul." And then you carry on. Well, we did this, you see, every night. Well, this particular night when the phone went, it was my job to go out that night. And I was asleep, and she said, "Nurse, the phone is ringing. I expect it's for you." So I had to get up and answer the phone. It was one of these 3 places.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, I had to get all around the back of the house to get my bike out and lock it all up, you know, and get myself out. And I had to go right along the side of the park. When I take a bag with me and different things. And when I got by this park, there was a warden. And he said, "Get off that bike, they're falling fast." He said, "Listen to them all coming over." I said, "Can't, maternity case," and rode on. There's a coffee. Right, I went on, and then these doodle bikes keep stopping. It's terrible. When they stop, they switch on down, you see. And then they fall, and of course they shatter roads. They just, a road went like a pack of cards, it all went in like cards. The devastation.
You could hear them coming.
Oh yes, the swish. They'd stop. They were coming over as a noise of a plane, and then they'd stop. And then, when they stopped, you had to do something, because it was this swish, and you wouldn't know where they were dropping. And then you see they drop anywhere. Well, many a time I've been near them. You just lay down flat in the road, so I just fell off my bike, laid down. I mean, say traffic, there's no traffic about, but if there had been, they wouldn't see you in the middle of the road on a dark night, they'd have rolled over you. So that's what happened. So I went on, and when I got to this house, finally, because I knew it was a dreadful night, it was a shocking one, the worst nights I'd had. And when I got to this house, and I moved along and fumbled my way along and found the door, and put my bike out, I suppose in the gate, I wanted to bike, took the lamp off to sort of have a little tiny look to see it was the right number, and I knocked and nobody came. And I was ever so frightened, and so I pushed the door and it was open, so in I go. Well, I knew where Mum was, you see, so I fumbled along to try and find her, and I couldn't find anybody. And suddenly Dad came in from the garden, and he said, "Oh good, I'm glad you've come, nurse." He said, "We were all in the shelter." He said, "What a terrible night." So he said, come in. So I get into the kitchen, you see. So he said, we can't have any of her nice stuff. He said, that's all upstairs. I'm too frightened to go up and get it. I said, oh, never mind. We'll have the bowls from the kitchen. Don't worry, go upstairs, for goodness sake. Because he got 4 children, 4 little girls. And then the bottom of the shelter, he'd made it that they're like 2 shelves, and the 2 little girls, 2 were on one shelf and 2 were on the other, one either end. Lovely little girls they were. Anyway, there was Mum laying on the bunk, and there was another bunk empty which Dad had, so I just got and looked at him, you see, and so I said, well, I think what we better do is to get everything to the shelter that we can think of, and then you won't have to go out. If the water's cold, it's just cold, and that's it. So he said, well, before it started too bad, he said, I brought down that great big jug that you put cold water in, they hold 8 pints. You know the old jugs and basins on the washstands?
Yeah.
Well, of course, they were marvellous, great boom. Well, they had one of those jugs, it didn't have a basin, and he said, I've got that. So I said, well, fill that with water and just I'll get down in this Anderson, you know, they'll take right down, and you pass everything down to me, and I'll take it, and then when you've finished, you come on down, you see. He said, there's a turn back at there you can sit on for a seat. So I said, I have you and brim round me. Anyway, he got to give me this water, and just as he was about to give it to me, the doodlebug had stopped, and it was coming down, and we could hear it swishing. Any minute it's going to drop. I mean, you don't know, and it could only drop further away, you see, and shatter a road, 2 roads from you. And so what did he do? He was so frightened he fell, and he tipped 8 pints of cold water over me from head to foot. I was absolutely dreadful. Right, of course, he cried. He was in such a state because he was dripping wet from head to foot. So just laugh, what can we do? And it was all mad underneath because it was earth, you see, it made it into all sloth. So Mother said, well, you can't stay like that. I said, well, no, I have to get some of this clothes off because I was really wet. So, of course, we lost all the water and I had to get more water. So she said, you better go up in the kitchen. There's my clothes. I dropped 8 of on the floor, all my maternity clothes. So I dressed in her maternity clothes in the kitchen. Didn't care whether Dad could see what I was doing or not. I had dressed in the kitchen. Dad was there, he said, I won't look at it, you can't see it. It was pitch black. You can't see me. He said, no, where are you? That's all right. I said, I'm finding the clothes. And you want, oh, it's funny all my life. So I go down in her maternity clothes. And you have to proceed with some more water, you see. I don't think I ever got any hot water to get in or end. Anyway, these little children, we'd made little curtains across. These little children kept looking at me. We carried on, and Mum was delivered on this bunk. Dad was wonderful. He was in a terrible state what he'd done to me, but I don't say that's nothing. Anyway, she was marvellous. And the baby was born, it was a boy. She told me she was going to call it Richard if it was a boy, and I said, we've got Richard. And I said, children, you've got a little baby brother. And you know, it was just like in a comic cut. They all pulled the little curtains back. This is true. They pulled the little curtains back and had a little look out. And I said, I'll bring the baby over and show you in a minute. And they were awake all that time. And I took the baby over, pulled the curtains back, and they went to sleep. We never heard another word. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, the doodlebug stopped because it was light. It was daylight, dawn coming. It didn't come on over then. That was my most wonderful delivery. Well, anyway, all on my own. I mean, when you think of it, I mean, that wasn't bad, was it?
No.
And then, of course, it takes a long time to clear up when you're dead in a place like that. You know, where do you start? We got Mum over onto the clean bunk and then did all this, that and the other. And, of course, my midwife had said, if you don't want me in the night for any reason, she said, let me know about 8:30 in the morning if you know, and we'll sort out the work. Well, of course, the time I'd finished all there and everything, I'd forgotten about my clothes. You'd never believe this. I mean, how elated I was. I put my coat, which was made from a gabardine mat in those days, and a storm cap. I put that on top of her, as I was, see, and left her and went on. And it was about 7 in the morning when I finished, and I thought, well, that's time you midwife, 11 plus baby. So I went by her door. I had to go by and knock, and she looked down at the bedroom window, and she said, what's the matter, nurse? I said, nothing. I'm delivering a baby. She said, well, I don't want to know 7 o'clock in the morning. I said, oh, but it's lovely. And she said, what have you got on? She said, oh, there's clothes back again. Oh, I said, I've got the mother's maternity clothes. They were so big and they just dropped. I said, I've got the mother's maternity clothes. So that's that day of the week. Anyway, because I had to go back 8:30 and explain to her what had happened. But I mean, oh dear, that was a wonderful thing. You can imagine, I was absolutely elated.